This past week, we got to witness a Bruins legend, Patrice Bergeron, announce his retirement from the NHL. He was, if not, one of the greatest defensive offensemen in recent memory and an instant inductee to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was one of many hockey players from the 2003 NHL draft class to have a long, legendary career in the NHL. In this video, I want to take a look at the remaining active players in the class of 2003. This draft class will go down as one of the best drafts in NHL history. To put into perspective on how talented this draft class was, here's a list of all NHL All-Stars in the first round from 2000 through 2015. You can see that the 2003 class beats every year in nearly every category: games played, goals, and points. Interestingly enough, the last active players to play in the NHL next season are players of the 2003 draft class, with only 3 remaining to have played before the NHL lockout. As of making this video, these are all of the current active players from the 2003 draft class. So with that, I hope you enjoy the video. Marc-Andre Fleury became the 3rd goalie in NHL history to be taken first overall. He'll go down as one of the least hated hockey players in recent memory. He was a good goalie behind the Pittsburgh Penguins, winning 3 Stanley Cups. He was already a fringe Hall of Fame player, but it wasn't until he went to Vegas was where he would prove that he was a dominant goalie in the league, winning a Vezina and Jennings Trophy as the best goalie in the 2020-21 season. This upcoming season, he'll only need 8 more wins to pass Patrick Roy to become the goalie with the 2nd most wins in NHL history. It's been confirmed that this will likely be his last year in the NHL, and with this being his last year of his contract. When his time is done in the NHL, he'll go down as a future Hall of Famer. Eric Staal's career overall has been very consistent. In his early years, he was a major contributor to the Carolina Hurricanes as he often led the team in scoring, producing 100 points in his 2nd year and winning the Stanley Cup. However, the team would find their struggles, only making the playoffs in 2 out of 12 years when he was a Hurricane. His 2nd chapter in the NHL would start with some struggles, as it looked like his career was beginning to decline, producing at less than half a point per game compared to his usual 60-70 point production. But once he resettled in Minnesota, he would have a resurgence in his scoring, but unfortunately didn't have any playoff success. His final years have seen him floating around to different teams in hopes of winning the cup, with his last 2 seasons getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, but he would fall short. He is still an unrestricted free agent. If he does end up retiring, there is a debate if he can get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. He is also one of 30 players to ever be part of the Triple Gold Club, meaning that they have won a Stanley Cup, an Olympic gold medal, and a World Champion gold medal. Ryan Suter currently has the most games played by an active defenseman in the league. At his prime, he was always a contender for the Norris Trophy, playing nearly 30 minutes a night and was a consistent defender on the blue line. Not only did he play a defensive game, but he also could put up solid numbers at 40 to 50 points in a full season. His role has diminished as he is entering his twilight years, but he can still be a consistent defenseman for any team he plays for. He currently has 2 more years before his contract expires for the Dallas Stars. Jeff Carter was an instrumental piece for the LA Kings' 2012 Stanley Cup run when he was traded at the deadline. It is often forgotten that Carter was a very good goal scorer during his prime with the Philadelphia Flyers and Los Angeles Kings, scoring an average of 30 goals in a 10-year stretch. His hardware does include many awards in the junior levels, and in the NHL, he has won 2 Stanley Cups, both with the Kings. As of this past season, he is playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins and is in his final year in his contract. Up next is Zach Parise. Overall, he's a player who can give you decent offensive numbers. In his prime, he would score 94 points in his 4th year in the league. His reputation has been of debate, of having one of the worst contracts in the NHL alongside Ryan Suter, as both of them would sign a 13-year, $98 million contract, which is roughly $7.5 million per season. That's an equivalent of signing a player $10 million for the next 13 years if it were signed today. It also didn't help that he was very injury prone, playing in roughly 85% of all NHL games in a span of 8 years. He would become healthy later towards the end of his contract, but by then, the Minnesota Wild had bought out his contract. Afterwards, he spent 2 years as a New York Islander, now serving as a depth player, and remains to be signed. It is to be determined if he will sign for another team this season or if he will retire. Up next, we have Brent Burns. He has that unique stature of playing both a role as a forward and a defenseman, with most of his career being spent as a defender on the blue line. His time playing as a forward would help his defensive numbers increase and would be a consistent contender for the Norris Trophy as best defenseman, winning one and being a finalist in 3 out of 4 years. We have seen some regression from the big blue liner the last couple of seasons, but after being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, he has rejuvenated his career, putting up solid numbers, scoring 61 points, and was even voted in the top 10 for the best defenseman. As of today, he has 2 more seasons before his contract expires. Corey Perry early in his career had a style of play equivalent to modern power forwards, being one of the most agitating players in the league, but was also putting up solid numbers, as he once put up 50 goals and won not only the Rocket Richard Trophy as the leading goal scorer, but also winning the Hart Trophy as the MVP. He's been a solid contributor, winning 1 Stanley Cup for the Anaheim Ducks. In recent times, Corey Perry has been venturing to different teams and even made 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals appearances, all with separate teams. But all of his attempts have come short of a Stanley Cup. As of this upcoming season, he'll be playing for the Chicago Blackhawks on a 1-year contract. He is also another player when debated about getting into the Hockey Hall of Fame, as players with the Hart Trophy have a very good chance of getting in at one point or another. Up next is Joe Pavelski. He has one of the most unique careers of any hockey player to date. Pavelski was a player who didn't play in the NHL until the 2006-07 season, 4 years post-draft. His development as a hockey player would only improve each season. He has been a very consistent 60-70 point producer in his entire career. He even holds a record with most goals scored in a playoff season over the age of 35. He isn't a player who has won awards or will wow you in his play, but a player who is very underrated for what he contributes offensively, as he wouldn't reach his career highs until the age of 37 years old, when he scored 27 goals and 81 points. To this day, he is still a solid near point per game player, as he hasn't let his age defy his playing career and seems to only get better every year. He is another player that can be argued to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame due to his longevity, but what do you think? Yaroslav Halak was a goaltender picked 271st overall in the draft and didn't make his NHL debut until the 06-07 season. At his prime, he was a consistent starter in the NHL, with his best year arguably being the 2014-15 season where he would win 38 games for the New York Islanders, and even won 2 Jennings trophies for having the best goals against average per season. The past 4 years have seen him be a decent backup goaltender for various teams, but as of today, he remains a free agent. With the last player still active in the 2003 NHL draft class, we have Brian Elliott, another goaltender selected 291st overall, that being the second to last pick of that draft. Beginning his career in the 07-08 season, Elliott was a decent goaltender for most of his career. When at his prime, Elliott was a brick wall, having an astounding .940 save percentage in the 2011-12 season, winning the Jennings and tying that record for second place with the highest save percentage in an NHL season. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be in his prime for long, as he was also a very inconsistent goaltender when he was given more time to shine. His last couple years seen him as a backup for the Tampa Bay Lightning and is currently a free agent. With this past season having an .891 save percentage, it'll make things difficult to find a team that'll be interested in his services. And there you have it. There is a possibility that some of the remaining free agents still active could retire before the start of this upcoming season. You can see that many of these players are still relevant to their teams, which makes it even more impressive that it's been 20 years since they were drafted. If you're new here, You can check out my previous videos where I talk about every NHL team's first draft pick, or even talking about the infamous 2012 NHL draft class. I hope to see you again.